Hello everyone. Our Lord and Savior Mac Demarco has blessed us with a new album. It's called Here Comes the Cowboy and has a big old green smiley face on the front of it.
Take a chance. No third degree.
This is his 6th or 7th studio album, depending on how you look at it, and this is the first album since 2017's This Old Dog.
And if you didn't know, as always, Mac Demarco produces his own albums,
as well as records them to tape. This album is definitely a continuation of the sound he brought up on This Old Dog, but even more bare bones and even more acoustic driven.
In the short time it's been out so far, fans seem to be pretty divided on it. On the one hand, you got people that are happy with the continuation of the sound from This Old Dog, and on the other hand, you got people that find it a bit repetitive and generally don't like this direction from Mac.
Production-wise, this album is on point, as Mac Demarco's entire discography has always been. Because he records to tape, it's very pure, and it's got that classic analog sound that I absolutely love and that perfectly fits Mac Demarco's music. He also recorded this album in his garage, and you can actually hear birds and rain in a couple of the songs in the background, which I really like. One of the great things about tape is you can kind of hear all those little mess-ups and all those little natural touches that you would normally edit out on a computer.
As for a track rundown, the album starts off with Here Comes the Cowboy. Now this track is your classic Mac Demarco weirdness. There's some pretty quirky vocals in this intro song, and it doesn't have much except for one line that's repeated, which is Here Comes the Cowboy. To me, it's really meant to be just an intro track and nothing more. I wouldn't really call it a complete song. It's just kind of a silly intro. And I was on the side of really enjoying this single when it came out. I really like bare Mac Demarco, and this song is very bare.
Now this song definitely sets the stage for the rest of the album. It's very similar to this song throughout. So if you're a fan of this sound, you're gonna absolutely love the album. If you're not as much of a fan of the bare, kind of slow-moving, acoustic, simple songs, you might not be such a fan.
On Finally Alone, we get the first taste of the awkward flows and patterns Mac Demarco brings on this album. He's got that funky interjecting falsetto that he drops in there every once in a while, and it really creates a choppy pattern that I like.
In a lot of recent interviews, Mac has been talking about his struggles with fame and how he battles with himself to live up to his reputation. And I feel like this song talks about that, how he almost wishes like he could be alone and be himself again, and I think that's what he's talking about on this track.
Little Dog's March is up next, and it sounds like it was recorded in a basement, but it was actually recorded in a garage. Wrong room of the house.
Which makes for an almost depressing song, especially the way that Mac sings the line, "Little doggy." And especially when you read the lyrics, it sounds like the song is talking about how the good times are over and you just gotta keep marching on because you gotta keep going through life, but everything's shit now. It used to be good, now it sucks. Relatable.
All of the songs up until this point have had pretty memorable choruses to me, which is something I notice a lot with Mac Demarco when I listen to him. The choruses of his songs always end up getting stuck in my head after I'm done listening to them. Now we would review the rest of the album, but we're a little bit preoccupied.
You can't be making stupid jokes like that.
Coming in at number 5 is Preoccupied. This is the first song that I noticed a few other production elements, whereas all the songs before were very bare and stripped back. This is the first track I noticed had some other production elements on it. It's got an interesting collage of sounds mixed in, with what to me sounds like some wood knocking, but it could be just him tapping on a table every once in a while.
And the best part is the birds in the background. And I'm not joking, I don't know, I like the way the birds in the background make the song feel. It's kind of like I'm sitting outside on a summer day listening to the song. And I don't actually think he intended on having this in the track. He left it in obviously, but it just worked out really cool. I will say though, at this point in the album, it is getting a little bit repetitive.
And just as you were getting worried about it being repetitive, he hits you with a non-repetitive track.
Choo choo! Ooh!
Choo Choo is... Stop drinking and fuck. Choo Choo is a very different track for Mac Demarco, and it's a super unique sound for this album. And at a point where the album was getting a bit repetitive, he changes it up perfectly. Sprayed Coke all over my table.
The song is unlike anything we've ever heard before from Mac. It's really funky and wacky and silly, and it sounds a lot like 70s rock. It's also catchy as hell. It's been stuck in my head ever since I first heard it. Take a ride with me. I also absolutely love the inclusion of the train whistle. It's so dumb, but so perfect. The song is gonna be fun as hell to witness live.
Following Choo Choo is Capital K.
Now when a girl hits you with that, you know you're in trouble.
I really respect Mac Demarco's ability to change it up so quickly from song to song on this album. He goes from a crazy song like Choo Choo straight to a really slow, emotional song like K. This song is quiet, sentimental, and overall just emotional. He goes deep on this track.
I will say though, this does unfortunately take us back to the repetitive nature of the earlier songs. I definitely feel like I would have liked a little more variation on this album. After that you have the song Heart to Heart, which is written about Mac Miller. Mac DeMarco was great friends with Mac Miller and they were hanging out all the time right up until his death. So I think Mac was hit really hard when he passed away. It's certainly not the most creative song or best in terms of melody, but it's very heartfelt in terms of the lyrics, and I do like the inclusion of the synth as well. The song definitely reminds me of some of the synths that were on the last album, This Old Dog. But unfortunately, I would say this is probably one of the more forgettable tracks on this album.
If you don't know the backstory behind the track, then it is definitely one of those songs. Hey Cowgirl is one of the only tracks on this album that I really don't have much to say about. It's a good little acoustic song, but it's nothing new from Mac DeMarco, and to me it's really just some filler.
Yeah, not much to really say about that one. Up next is the song On the Square, which is a follow-up to the song On the Level, which is on This Old Dog. At least we think it's a follow-up. It's a Masonic term to be on the level on the square. So we're thinking, because Mac DeMarco has ties with the Freemasons, that this is the continuation of the song on the last album. We're very spooked.
Now right off the bat, I just want to say I love this song. It's the first track on the album that we get the piano from Mac DeMarco, which I really don't think he uses enough at all because it sounds amazing when he does. The echoey piano makes the sound song really full.
You just said the sound song. What?
And again, I really just think he should use it more often because it really complements his voice. And Mac really piles everything onto this song. You got the fun, wavy guitar leads, the synth, and his classic vocals. To me, it's just a complete, great song.
Once again, referring to the song Chamber of Reflection, this song has the same little synth part that goes da da la na na. And this song is a disturbing, creepy as hell, but very Mac DeMarco-y music video.
Getting into the last three tracks, it starts off with All of Our Yesterdays.
This is definitely one of my favorite songs on this album. It blends together his new sound with his old sound. You got the acoustic guitars, but during the chorus you have the classic, dreamy, jangly guitars that he's known for on his earlier albums. So if you're a Mac fan that's really dreaming of the sound of his earlier work, this is the track for you. I love that Mac has evolved and changed his sound, but it's nice to have a little callback of the old Mac.
To be honest with you guys, I need to take a steamy old dump and there's no perfect place to put it than this track, Skyless Moon.
At this point, it's just getting a little boring. We've had so many mid-tempo slow songs on this album that having another one is just a little bit of a snooze. And there's just nothing redeeming about this song. The melody kind of sucks. Nothing much going on in terms of production, instrumentation. This is the album stinker. Every album's got it, and this is it.
And in classic Mac DeMarco style, the poopy poop shit is followed up by an amazing song.
But luckily, after you take a big, wet shit, the sun comes out and the rainbow is visible again.
Baby Bye Bye includes piano again, which I was super excited about when I started this track because I was raving about it on the last track that had piano.
It's definitely nice to see Mac experimenting with piano. He's had a lot of synths in his songs before, but I like to hear him playing some good old-fashioned piano. Works as an excellent closer to this album. The song is 8 minutes of pure bliss.
This song really builds up to a crazy end. You have a ton of different elements working at the same time, and he just goes into overdrive at the end.
It's almost like if you took everything that was on this album and mashed it up into one song, you'd have it. You got the acoustic guitar, you got the synths, the piano, and I love at the end you got the slide guitar. And then after the song ends, there's like 2 minutes of silence with some talking, and there's a weird, funky, goofy, silly track that I had no idea was on the album until you listen to this album.
And again, that song has a clear 70s rock influence.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is actually supposed to be a part of Baby Bye Bye or this is just a hidden track that he shoved at the end of that song. But either way, I like it. Mac is always known for having something weird at the end of each album. He put his address at the end of one of the albums. He had a little thank you for listening to my album at the end of another. And this one we're greeted with a nice 70s funk rock fuck around. Overall, I think it's a decent album. It certainly has its faults in terms of repetitiveness. I think he definitely went way overboard with the mid-tempo songs with this drum beat. Like he uses that a little too often, but each song on its own is quite good. I just think this album could have used a bit more variation and a bit more energy. If you would maybe cut 2 or 3 songs out of this album and put in something with a bit more energy, such as songs like Freaking Out the Neighborhood or Let Her Go, you know, just those types of songs. And I don't know if this album is going to hold up as well as his other ones. I just feel like I'm going to tire of these songs a lot easier. I don't think anything out of this album is going to really become a Mac classic.
The way I see this album is I think it's good, but in comparison to his other albums, I don't know how good. I expect Mac DeMarco to be one of those artists that at the end of his career, he's going to have a lot of albums. I think he really likes to make music, so he's just always going to be constantly creating. Because of that, I don't think that this album is that bad in the grand scheme of things. There's a few tracks on it I really enjoyed, and there's some tracks on it that are a bit repetitive and that I didn't enjoy. So I think in general, I wouldn't be too disappointed that, you know, this is what we got for our one album every once in a while and he's not going to release something very soon. I think with Mac DeMarco, you never have to be that afraid. If he releases something you didn't like, you can expect him to release something later that you probably will like, because he's always making new stuff. But in general, I think it was a decent album. I think it was middle of the road for me. And there's definitely some songs on here that I will have downloaded on my phone.
Yeah, and because his earlier albums are so good, my standards are ridiculously high. So I feel like unless he makes something as good as his earlier work, everything's always going to be living in a bit of a shadow. But I do also attribute the less energetic elements of this album to Mac being a little bit depressed these days, it seems like. He's talked about in interviews that he's a bit depressed and he's not really liking being famous and all that. So he's probably not in the mood to really write the more energetic songs, but it is what it is.
And that's something I can say I really enjoyed about the album, is its laid backness. I've classically in the past always loved it when Mac went really simple, so getting a whole album like that, I was really pleased.
Some people definitely don't have that opinion. If you're a fan of the more energetic, production-filled songs, you might not like this, and I feel like that's what's dividing fans so much. I just think this complements his discography really well. As for ratings, I'm gonna give this album a 75%.
For me, it's a 79.9. It's almost an 80, but I just couldn't bring myself to give it an 80 because I just have the feeling that 80 should be reserved for albums that just go above and beyond. And this album has a lot of good songs, but unfortunately it has some failings too. So I gotta give it just below an 80.
Thank you for watching our review. Please leave a comment and telling us what you think about this album. We want to know your opinion.
See you next time.
This is no responsibilities. Subscribe, please.